You might be wondering why I'm at the Eiffel Tower in France. Well, the thing is about the Eiffel Tower, what would it look like if the people just gave up building it, said, hey, we're going to stop building it right now? Well, that's what we're looking at today. We're going to be looking at motivation and giving up and what are the best ways to motivate. And that's what we're looking at on What Are We Looking At Today? The purpose of this study is to determine which type of feedback is most useful in motivating students. What type of motivation is most beneficial for a diverse group of ages and backgrounds? Does proper motivational feedback facilitate self-regulation? These are questions we need answered, and maybe the study will answer them. What is self-regulation though? Self-regulation is when students take it upon themselves Self-regulation is when students take it upon themselves to be in charge of their own learning and are able to motivate themselves in ways they know. But before we go any further, what is feedback? Feedback is when an agent provides information to an individual regarding performance or understanding.
There have been many studies conducted concerning the role of feedback in terms of motivation, namely by researcher Carol Dweck. It was found that when students were praised upon their ability and performance in tests, they were less likely to risk high scores in exchange for learning experiences. It was found that when students were praised for hard work and effort, they were more likely to attempt difficult questions. This is what Dweck describes as a growth mindset, which is when the individual has the understanding that intelligence isn't fixed and can redeem themselves for low scores through hard work. But really, what are we talking about when we use the term motivation? Well, let's find out.
Today we have a guest joining us. I'm a robot, and I don't understand what motivation is. Can you please break it down for me? That's a good question. What is motivation? When we discuss motivation at a level in schools, we are mainly concerned about intrinsic motivation. This is when you are motivated you get motivation from inside yourself, from personal desires, internal desires, whereas extrinsic motivation is the opposite, which we don't concern about as much because that comes from external desires. So we're going to be looking at this intrinsic motivation. Any comments on that, Mr. Robot? Fleet foot. When we are talking about motivation, we're also going to be addressing the role of feedback in motivating individuals. So whether or not process praise is better than performance praise. And we're just going to take to the streets now. I'm in the field and we're going to be looking at some of the perspectives on this thing. Excuse me, do you think praising performance or praising process is better for stimulating student motivation?
Praising performance.
That's incorrect.
Oh,
That's incorrect. That's bad parenting.
What was the other things you were yelling at me?
As we've just seen, even though process praise is better than performance praise, many parents from surveys, it's been found that many parents from surveys are more likely to give their students performance praise than process praise. So that's a big problem. Motivation in students comes from a range of things, and one critical aspect is self-belief. And self-belief, if you believe in a student, it's been found in studies that when teachers don't believe in students, they have higher test anxiety and lower expectancy for scores, lower academic concept. So students should believe in themselves, and you should believe in them too. From the research already done, there's a big part that has to play within genders. Generally, women receive greater motivation from ego-driven activities, whereas men prefer to be praised for products. There's also a very big distinction between age. Kids in kindergarten were indifferent to what kind of feedback they received, as found in some studies, whereas everything from kindergarten to university levels was more or less the same. The sun, nature's clock. Time is a very important element when we're discussing motivation. Some researchers have been concerned about the long-lasting negative consequences of giving individuals person feedback and how that may affect their grades and their motivation and drive in later years of life. Well, some people have actually put this to the test, and what they found was that although product praise isn't as beneficial as process praise, it does provide significant advances in learning outcomes compared to baseline figures. So product praise is a winner. Just not as much as process praise.
So clearly through other research we found that process praise is generally better than performance praise in almost all cases. So, what does the study we're going to be looking at look like? Previous studies have compared the effects of feedback by having control and experimental groups and measuring the impact on those results. Many of the studies discuss limitations, specifically not focusing on their role of age and gender in motivation due to their sample size being small. In my proposal, I'd aim for a large sample size that measures and compares the impact of gender as well as age in terms of which feedback is most effective and to what extent. This will be done through results from challenges that measure the scores as well as the number of questions attempted, while participants will also be filling out surveys where they evaluate their performance. From the results we'll hopefully be able to affirm the notion that process praise is better than product praise in motivating students, as well as establishing if there are any distinct differences in motivation that stems from age or gender, an aspect that has been overlooked in the past due to sample sizes.
And that's all we're going to be looking at today. And what are we looking at today? Tune in next week when we look at
Killer whales.